Welcome to the Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership Podcast. Subscribe now so you don't miss a drop of straight talk you can't get anywhere else. We discuss the whiskeys to drink, music to listen to, and what it really takes to be an effective leader. I'm your host, Galen Bingham, the leadership strategist. Tonight's guest, mediocrity disruptor and owner of Down Set Lead, Rod Bourn. Hey, what you drink? Wow. I mean, that's a great story, and it really does highlight the importance of having mentors. And you said that earlier, that if you don't have a mentor, I don't know how you do this thing called life without mentors, either physically in your presence or invisible mentors. But it also highlights the impact of speaking life into someone, because you and I kind of share that in common in that, I was kind of doing my thing in corporate America and was doing a pretty good job, but, felt really good about having some of the corporate names behind me, working for the Coca-Cola company and working for Kraft Foods. And that's kind of what I led with. And it wasn't until I had an opportunity to befriend my pastor. We just really developed a friendship beyond me being a parishioner and him leading the entire church. We started meeting for breakfast just to talk about life. And it was Pastor Gary Brooks who said, hey, look, I'm really struggling with some issues within the church leadership. He was brilliant behind the pulpit, brilliant as far as a storyteller, and certainly knew scripture and what he was talking about. But I could just tell that he was struggling with some of the leadership elements of managing the other ministry leaders in the church. And so I just offered, hey, look, I've led a couple of teams. Would it help you if I come in and share what I understand about leadership, share some of the training that I've been through around leadership, and just share that with you and the rest of your ministry leaders? He took me up on the offer. I cobbled together some concepts that seemed to make sense to me as a leader, and presented that at one of their staff meetings. What was supposed to be one session turned into 4 sessions. What was originally supposed to end at a 4th session turned into a sermon that he preached. And when he preached that sermon, he was just getting into podcasting and live streaming. So that sermon ended up in the hands of other pastors. And then one pastor came back to me and said, hey, look, you know me as a pastor, but I also teach at this local university. Would you come speak to my class? And then after speaking to his class, I was involved in a couple of nonprofit organizations and was on a board of a couple of nonprofit organizations, and, met with one of the nonprofit board meetings, and everyone was kind of chatting about what they did the week before. And I just shared, hey, look, this is what I did the week before. It was amazing. Here's the journey. And I was speaking to this class. They seemed to get a lot out of it. And sitting in the board table was an executive that said, hey, look, we're kind of struggling with that within our organization. Would you come and speak to our organization? And then all of a sudden, let's go back to our conversation about flow. I found the flow. I found the current. And I literally picked a spot downstream and said, hey, look, I would love to do this full time. I would love to do this most of my time. And that's what ended us on this podcast today. And it wasn't something that was directly across the river. It's funny when I speak with my accountability partners, we talk about this book, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. And one of the laws is the law of least effort. It's literally the thing that takes the least amount of effort to do. That was a clue that this might be what you were put on this planet to do, to work in. And so I just love the way our lives kind of parallel that. And just as I look at your face right now, there's a calmness about you that doesn't necessarily mean to me that every day is easy, but there seems to be this confidence that I'm in the flow of what I was put here to do. Talk to me a little bit about that this calm look that I see on your face.
What might be the Jefferson small batch, but it's just one of those awesome things where you feel like I'm home. This is where I belong. Like I said, one of the things in 2020 that I heard that made the biggest impact on me is there are people out there waiting to love you. And I would encourage everybody listening to this to kind of run that through their mind a couple of times. There are people out there waiting. Your life could suck right now, but understand that there are people out there waiting to love you. They just haven't found you yet. You haven't
Mm,
found them. Let me give you a couple of. I love to have fun, as I mentioned. I'm okay with putting myself out there. I've always been kind of I don't know if you call it the class clown, class cut up, but I mean, I was always kind of like that in school or whatever. I would put myself out there. But people like that. What is the sexiest thing in the world, Galen? It's confidence. Am I right? Yeah.
absolutely.
The sexiest thing in the world is confidence. And if you don't believe me, go back and look at the show Jersey Shore. I don't know if you remember that, but I mean, it was the dumbest people doing the dumbest things, and people loved them because they were so damn cocky and so damn sure of themselves. But they had a following. They had a following. Whether you agree with them or not, they had a following. So, I'll come up with an idea. Guys, we're gonna go do this. Okay, sure. As long as, Rod, you go ahead, you be the leader, and we'll follow you. And at the end of the night, guys, did we have fun? Yes, we had fun. And that's one of the things that I'll often talk about, Galen, when I'm making a presentation about leadership, is that 90% of the people in the world are totally happy with being the follower and being led. They're like, all right, who wants to be the lead? All right, Galen, yay, Galen's gonna go out in front. And go, Galen, you got this, baby. It's all yours, man. We're right here behind you. And the good thing, especially about Americans, I think, is we're a very forgiving lot. You don't believe me? Just look at any of the presidents that we've had, and presidents can screw up, whether they're the president of the country, whether the president of a company or whatever. But they screw up. But if you come back and you're like, guys, I screwed up. I'm sorry. As long as you have that honesty with your people, they'll be like, no problem, Galen. Keep doing it. You got this, baby. We're right behind you. People want, for the most part, to be led. And as long as it's by an honest person who, if they make a mistake, say, guys, I made a mistake, boom, boom, boom. But here's what I still believe in. You continue to feed them a vision. They're like, yes, we believe in your vision. We're glad that you're out in front. Go lead.
Mhm.
And then you talk about developing that confidence, because the more you do something, the more you have success with something, the more confidence you're going to get in doing it. Correct. And so put yourself out there, give yourself the opportunities. One of the things that you said just a couple of minutes ago is dead on. I did it. I know lots of people who have done it, where you go and you speak at a friend's class. The friend's a adjunct professor somewhere at a community college, and hey, come on in and talk to the group about this something, about this topic that you really know a lot about. And you go and you like boom, that was great. And then you start actually being the professor, and then you start actually going out and giving talks about it, or what. You go up the ladder, and going towards what your goal is. You're climbing towards, you're going down the river towards, you're flowing to where you belong. You have a calling, and you're answering the calling, and you hear the voices. And trust me, people, whatever it is that you want to do, as long as it is a good, blessed thing, there are people that will welcome you and give you an opportunity to lead them. And as long as you're honest and share a vision with them, they're like, yay, go Galen, knock the ball out of the park. We're right with you, baby.
Something that you said reminded me of my absolute favorite television show in the early 2000s. So I'm going to date myself. And I've never really been a fan of television, but every now and then I would find a show that just absolutely captures me. And that show for me in the early 2000s was West Wing. And there is a line that came late in that series. And the line is something like, in the absence of true leadership, the people will follow anyone who steps up to the mic. And you just reminded me of that. You reminded me of the fact that people are looking for someone to take the lead. And I believe that people can recognize true leadership. But in the absence of true leadership, anyone who's willing to step up to the mic, I'm going to get behind this dude. And so that gives you two responsibilities. Number one, if you are the true leader and again, I'm going to paraphrase advice I used to get from my dad growing up, particularly playing sports. He would say, Galen, when you're playing basketball, you look into the eye of the guy across the line from you, and you know in your heart of hearts whether or not you're better than they are. And if you're not, then you've got a decision to make as to how you're going to approach this. But you know in your heart whether or not they've got more ability than you do. And I think that the same is true for leadership. You can be in the bowels of the organization. You know in your heart of hearts whether or not you've got something to offer this organization. And you've got a decision to make. You can either raise your hand and say, hey, look, this is what I'm willing to do to help us achieve this goal. Or you can continue to play small and you don't benefit, the organization doesn't benefit, and those who are looking for true leadership, they're going to settle for whoever steps up to the mic. And you just brought all of that back to me. And so, one of the things that I've been doing lately is trying to get a true definition of the name of this podcast. What does this podcast actually mean to people? Because it makes sense to me. Whiskey, jazz, leadership. I like all three. Literally, the metaphor works for me. Whiskey is something that I love literally, but the metaphor is doing what you love with the people who love it, regardless of whether anyone else around you enjoy it or not. That's the metaphor. Jazz is, how do you get from point A to point B on time and in key, even when you don't have sheet music in front of you, right? How do you just have the confidence that, and actually I talked about this with my coaching coach. So although I am a coach, I have a coach on my coaching business. And one of the things that she really impressed upon me, because coaching is a little different than what people think that it is. People often think that coaching is about giving advice. And coaching really is about asking questions that cause the client to think about, how do you articulate what it is that they know that they need to do. And so the advice that I continue to get from my coach is trust the question, trust the process. Trust that although you don't necessarily know where this is going to go, it's going to go where it needs to. And so I bring that back to jazz. And for me, the jazz metaphor is, how can you trust the music? How can you trust your ability to play? And how can you trust that this tune is going to get to where it needs to be on time and in key? And it's kind of a metaphor for life for me as well. And then leadership, I mean, we've talked so much about leadership, and that's just one of the things that I've already come to love about you, dude. But for me, leadership is this metaphor that nothing happens until somebody does something. And I used to say when I was in sales, nobody eats unless somebody kills something. We can design the menu, we can talk about recipes, but until somebody kills something, nobody's going to eat, right? And even if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, until you cut something down, Nobody's going to eat unless somebody kills something. So help me with this metaphor, because for me, those three things fit together as a metaphor for life. But I'm really curious as to how does this fit for you? Does it fit?
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you on all three. So I love whiskey. I can't. I'm not one of these aficionados. One of my favorite things that I do, and again, this is Rod being Rod. I am part Scottish. When my dad was around, he took us to the Scottish Highland Games every year, and I'm, one of maybe the 8 people on the face of the earth outside of Scotland that likes bagpipe music, but I do, and I'm okay with that. I have a kilt that I actually love to wear, and on St. Andrew's Day, which is the Scottish version of St. Patrick's Day, I throw it on, and I created several years ago Kilt Night. And what we do is for those of us brave enough to wear kilts, okay, because I've got some, hey, I'm not going to wear no skirt. I'm like, fine. They're like, but I'm coming along because I want to see what happens. They're again, please do not think of me as some egotistical bastard, because I really do not, I try to be very, very sincere. But I'm like, I'm going to go have fun. I'm going to go throw on a kilt. And I go to this place in Fells Point here in Baltimore. I live in the Baltimore area. Fells Point, gorgeous historical area. If anybody's listening to the podcast and they want tips on where to go in Baltimore, Fells Point's a great place to start. Cobblestone Street, really cool bars. There's one there, Galen, it's called Birds of a Feather. And it is literally a Scotch bar. It is a lot of the places in Baltimore are townhouses, and they might be restaurants or bars that are old townhomes that have been converted, but they still have they're skinny and long. So in this one, you walk in, and the first thing that threw you was the woman behind. It was owned by a doctor at Hopkins. Is owned by a doctor at Hopkins, and he married someone who's Chinese. So you walk in, there's this Chinese woman behind the bar. She speaks perfect English, and she knows everything there is to know about Scotch. So it was awesome because. And what they did was really smart, because they've got a map of Scotland, and it breaks down the different geographical areas and the types of Scotch, the flavoring and everything comes from that. And so it was wonderful. I love to learn, and so we would go there, and they were kind enough that they would pour quarter drams. I mean, so it's just like a couple sips if you wanted just to taste something. But she would give you, if you were willing to listen, she would give you an education. And, so there are some people that they like the smoke, they like the peat, not me, not very much at all, and all of that. And it's weird, what do you like? Whether we're talking Scotch, whether we're talking wine, whether we're talking soda, whatever, what do you like? Don't be one of these, excuse me, I'll just say jerks. It's just, oh, well, Galen, what you're drinking there is only, blah, blah, blah. Drink what you want to drink. Have fun. And for these jerks that are, well, Galen, you obviously don't, let them be the jerks that they are. Okay. You go ahead and tell me not to put a cube in mine because that's killing it. Well, I like it with the single cube. Thank you very much. And that's what I'm going to do. And you can, if that means you think less of me, then you're obviously not one of the people that I'm supposed to go hang out with. I'm not going to get anything by being around that person. And I'm going to drink what I want to drink. And you know what? More and more people want to join me on Kilt Night every year, because they're like, they see what we do. They enjoy trying something new. And let's be honest, Galen, women love men in kilts. And they see the reaction that the women in the bars have. We're wearing our kilts. And they're like, I'm wearing a kilt next year. Like, okay, tough guy, you do that. And it's fun to do. As for jazz, I'll tell you, I got my jazz education from my son. My son plays alto sax, and he just, I mean, it was amazing to watch him just dive into. And every Christmas, Dad, I want a Cab Calloway and a Herbie Hancock CD. And I would sit down and I would listen to them with him. And I'll be honest with you, I never really sat and listened to jazz until my son came of age and started playing, and more and more and more. And he's like me in some ways. He's a dork. He's like, I like playing sax, and he would do it. When his friends were out doing other things, he would be, because he wanted to. He wanted to get better at it, and so I learned songs. We went one summer. He's like, I want to go to a jazz camp, and so we went to a jazz, and there was this young female friend of his who, she's like, that sounds really cool, but I don't play anything. And how cool is this? The director of the jazz camp says, you sing though, don't you? And she does. She goes, yeah. He goes, I could use an Ella.
Wow.
And let me tell you, at the end of every summer camp, you go and you see all the stuff that your kids made, and it's, there's all that macaroni art on the wall or whatever. Well, I got to go in and hear Colin play his alto sax and his friend Taylor sing. And let me tell you, it was amazing. And I learned so much. And their teacher, Benny, I mean, just an amazing guy. And, he's the kind of guys like Colin. Anytime you want, we get together on Sunday nights and you just come in for as long as you want, play whatever you want with us. And when you have to go, you go. And that's the world, Galen, that I want to build, where we are cool with saying, Rod, would love to have you stop by, contribute what you can, and go. And how that translates, because you said something a couple of minutes ago that really caught my ear. How that translates in work is, you're working there in the guts of Anheuser-Busch or wherever you are, and you want more out of life. And you put yourself out there, you take a chance. I can tell you that you will get noticed, both good and bad, by the jerks or the bad, okay? And you say, I think I've got an idea that could help us. You may be in a sick organization, sick meaning that they don't give enough value to the people that want to make it a better place. And the difficulty is, you may find that you really, really want to do something. You want to make a change. You may need to change the team you're on. You may need to change the organization you're in. Maybe it's just a lateral move. You stay within your organization, but you go work for someone else who's got a different vision within their own department. But that's that's where the rubber hits the road. Okay, we're talking about leadership, and you get real esoteric about it, and high and lofty and everything. But where does the rubber really hit the road, Galen? And that is, you're 20, 30, 40, even 50 years old, and you're working in the guts, and you're like, I can do more. We should be doing more. We should be doing better. To the degree that you feel safe doing it, put it out there. Because I can guarantee you, and I know this from my years of human resources, you've got that one person who, makes the world miserable for everybody in the office, and everyone is just silently praying that they get hit by a bus, or that you, the boss, will take corrective action and get rid of them, because that one person's making life miserable for the other 9, right? That's a Pareto principle, the old 80-20 rule, right? But if you can't affect change enough so that you're happy, go get happy. Remember, there are people out there waiting to love you. It may not be in that office. It may be in the office that's down the hall. It may be in the building that is next to your building. But get yourself out there, because people will begin to notice you. You'll attract the people who believe in whatever it is that you believe in, and you make your tribe that way.
Man, we are going to be close friends. I can tell right now. I mean, the moment you said Jefferson Small Batch, I breathed a sigh of relief because this is what it is about. This is what you get when you listen to and subscribe to Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. And dude, I gotta bring you into the VIP room, man. My VIPs are gonna love you. As a matter of fact, let's end this conversation while we're still cooking on nines here, and go directly into the VIP room, because one of the things that I just really want to get your take on is something that you just mentioned. And it's this idea. This actually reminds me of something that my pastor said, that just continued to haunt me for a long time. He said that we are all designed for greatness, but for some reason we settle for something similar too. And it was that comment that really caused me to start evaluating what is that something that causes us to settle for something similar to what we know that we're supposed to be doing. And if you're listening and you listen to my conversation with Teresa Bruni, we talk about fear. And fear is the thing that stands in the way of what we know in our gut that we were put here on the planet to do. And I want to get your take on this fear thing. How do you overcome the fear? There had to be some fear in that first time someone suggested, hey, Rod, why don't you put on this kilt? There had to be just a little fear, but now you've created this whole thing around almost thumbing your nose at fear and stepping into that space. So, dude, if you're okay, man, I say we cheers, we toast here. What are some final words that you want to share with our general podcast listeners? And how can they get a hold of you before I drag you into the VIP room?
Yeah. One of the things that I like to tell people to think about is that leaders remove obstacles. You should be having enough conversation with all of your people that you know what it is that they're supposed to be doing, you know what they're having issues with, and based on their level of ability, and that's just, experience, what are they having trouble with? And to the degree that you still need them to become even better, you help them to a degree with the obstacle that's keeping them from being able to shine. Because if they shine, you shine. So if you haven't had that particular conversation with what obstacle is keeping you from shining, ask that question.
I love it. Hey, man. Well, thank you so much for believing that this would be a great conversation, because it was. Thank you so much for reaching out to us and saying, dude, I've got something to say that would advance this mission that you have for releasing leaders from these constraints that they believe that they have to live within. And just thank you for this work that you're doing, man. I'm just so excited about where our relationship can lead, because I got a feeling this is not the last time that we're going to be together.
Amen. Galen, I can tell you now, it's not. You're going to be like, oh my God, there's Rod again.
So raise your glass, man, and let's cheers out.
Cheers.
Cheers. Hey, it's not too late. Hit that subscribe button so you're sure to catch the next episode. If you're really enjoying the vibe, leave us a review or become a VIP for guest and show exclusives. Cheers.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.